Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The school bullies would never have guessed that this boy had a secret kung fu master. At Roosevelt High School, nestled in a sleepy Texas town, the days passed with an almost soporific regularity. The hallways, lined with metal lockers and faded posters, echoed with laughter, chatter, the sound of headphones, and sports cheers, in short, the normal routine of teenage life. But beneath this tranquil surface, invisible cracks dug into some students' lives. Heavy silences, shifty glances, unbandaged wounds. Because in every school, no matter how quiet, there are shadows that no one notices. Dramas that play out far from the spotlight. And Noah Wallace was one of those silent dramas. He had arrived mid-year, without fanfare, accompanied by his mother, Emily Wallace, a sweet, unassuming woman, worn down by nights spent in the hospital and days juggling bills. They had left Chicago in a hurry, leaving behind a past no one here knew about. An absent father, years of loneliness, and an event, one Emily never spoke of, that had forced their departure. Noah, on the other hand, wasn't one to attract attention. Thin, almost frail, he often wore the same clothes, an oversized hoodie, faded jeans, worn sneakers. His gaze was shifty, his hair often in front of his eyes, like a curtain between him and the world. He always sat in the back row, near the window, often looking outside as if looking for somewhere else to be. And that was precisely what had attracted the predators. Jared Price, captain of the football team, had smelled easy prey from the very first week. The son of an influential man in town, Jared had the confidence of those who know they will never be punished. Muscular, charismatic, smiling in front of adults but cruel as soon as they turned their backs, he reigned over Roosevelt like a little playground king. With his gang, Dylan, Travis, and Brett, he had made Noah his prime target. Not because Noah had done anything. Precisely because he didn't do anything. He didn't respond. He didn't defend himself. He took it. Every day, the attacks took a new form. A shoving on the stairs. A soaked towel wrapped around the back of his neck in the locker room. A water bottle spilled on his bag. Insults whispered in his ear during class. Perhaps the worst was in the cafeteria, when Jared waited for Noah to sit down alone before walking up behind him and knocking over his tray with a smirk. Oops. I hope you saved some room for shame. The other students, passive witnesses, looked away. Some laughed to avoid becoming the next targets. Others looked down, consumed by guilt. Even the teachers seemed helpless. Jared was Coach Williams's pet, and Principal Carson never dared confront him, fearing retribution from his father. And each time, Noah remained silent. He bent down, picked up his things, cleaned the floor, and left the room without saying a word. Some students whispered that he must be a masochist. Others called him weak, a coward, a ghost. But the truth was quite different. For Noah was not weak. He was waiting. He carried a weight no one could see, a secret he jealously guarded. A promise made far away. An ancient pain he refused to let turn into hatred. Every blow taken, every insult swallowed, every humiliation experienced, it was a discipline. A test. A mastery. Because no one at Roosevelt knew that Noah Wallace, the boy with no voice, had a secret kung fu master. And that this master had not only taught him to defend himself, but to contain himself, to dominate himself, and to choose the right moment. And that moment was approaching. No one knew that every night, after homework was done, after the dishes were rinsed and put away in the sink, after his mother, Emily, was asleep in her room after a long night shift at the hospital, Noah would put on his black hoodie, slip his gloves into his bag, and walk out the back door. He cycled down the silent suburban streets, past sleepy neighborhoods, across an old metal bridge, under a railway line, until he reached a forgotten vacant lot. Amidst the tall grass and rusty car wrecks stood a wooden and tin building with dusty windows and a rickety roof, Master Nakamura's dojo. From the outside, it looked like an abandoned shed. No signs. No lights. Only a sliding door and a red lantern hanging from a nail, flickering in the wind. But inside, it was another world. Worn but clean tatami mats covered the floor. Ancient weapons, neatly arranged, decorated the walls: nunchucks, sticks, wooden swords. At the far end of the room, a framed calligraphy bore the ideogram, tolerate, of endurance. And there, in this forgotten oasis, lived a man no one would have imagined to be there, Master Kenji Nakamura, an old man with a straight back, a beard trimmed like a samurai's, and eyes as dark as the sea in winter. Noah had met him by chance one autumn evening while wandering, fleeing yet another humiliation at school. He had seen a figure lying in the grass near the dojo. It was an injured old man, who had obviously fallen, his ankle swollen. Noah had helped him up. He had wanted to call for help, but the man had categorically refused. "No doctors. I'll manage." The next day, Noah came back with a can of hot soup and bandages. Then again the day after, with rice and tea. For days, he came back. He hadn't asked for anything in return. He came. He listened. He observed. And Kenji finally speaks. The man was not just anyone. Once upon a time in Japan, Kenji Nakamura was a living legend of traditional kung fu, an outstanding fighter who traveled the world representing his school. But one day, during an underground tournament in Thailand, an opponent was seriously injured. Kenji, though not directly responsible, bore this tragedy like a curse. He abandoned the spotlight, the trophies, the disciples, and went into exile. "True strength," he said, "doesn't show itself. It protects. It keeps silent." Intrigued by young Noah's calm and loyalty, Kenji decided to break his vow of solitude. But under one strict condition. You will never use it for revenge. Never to fuel your anger. But only to defend those who cannot. And so began a unique, almost sacred teaching. Every evening, Noah traded his gray daily routine for the dim light of the dojo. He trained there for hours. Not to fight, but to know himself. To learn to listen to his body. Control his breathing. Read the intentions in the other person's eyes. Anticipate a move before it even begins. Kenji was demanding. He let nothing slide. Poor posture, a restless mind, rapid breathing, everything was corrected. But never angrily. Always with kind rigor. Noah sweated, fell, and sometimes bled. But he never complained. As the months passed, his body changed. More flexible. Stronger. Faster. But most importantly, his mind evolved. He was no longer the broken boy pushed down the halls. He was becoming a silent rock, a calm mountain. He had learned that true courage lay not in punching, but in restraint. In control. Sometimes he talked to Kenji about his days at high school. The bullies. The humiliations. Kenji listened with his eyes closed. And one evening, he simply said to her. "Flowing water seems weak. But it digs into stone. Be the water, Noah. Not the stone." 2 years passed like this. 2 years in the shadows. 2 years of silent transformation. And while the world continued to mock Noah Wallace, without knowing who he was, he became someone else. Someone formidable. Someone who is fair. Someone ready. That Friday had already been a long day for Noah. A full week of overdue homework, a poorly cured flu, nights too short because of his mother's extended shifts, and the heavy silence of loneliness. Autumn was setting in. Dead leaves covered the sidewalks, and the wind carried a cold, almost aggressive dampness. During lunch break, while walking down the main hallway of the North Building, Noah saw a first-year student, Haley Grant, with her arms full of books, stumble and drop everything. She looked embarrassed, blushing under the mocking stares. Noah immediately crouched down beside her to help her, gently, silently. But this simple and human gesture was perceived differently by those who were looking for the slightest excuse to belittle him. Jared Price, flanked by his two shadows, Travis and Brett, was walking down the hallway when he saw Noah hunched over. And something inside him, a toxic mix of boredom, pride, and contempt, was stirred. He quickened his pace, then without warning, violently shoved Noah back against the lockers. Clang. The metallic clang echoed throughout the hallway. Haley stepped back, frightened. "Don't you understand that you don't belong here, Wallace?" Jared said in a loud, mocking voice, stepping closer, his face inches from Noah's. Noah's silence irritated him. That downcast gaze, that lack of reaction, it was like a mirror he couldn't stand. He wanted to see fear. He wanted to trigger a reaction. Then he gave Noah's backpack a sharp tug, and it fell heavily to the ground, its contents, notebooks, pens, an old philosophy book, scattering across the floor. But this time, someone was watching. Olivia Mercer, a senior in the journalism club, was across the hall. She didn't like Jared. She didn't like bullies. And she knew that these kinds of actions were often swept under the rug. So, without a word, she pulled out her phone and pressed save. Noah, still on the ground, slowly gathered his things. He didn't even look at Jared. He didn't say a word. Just this calm. This resignation. A silence so strange, that it made others uncomfortable. A few hours later, the video was posted on the school newspaper's Instagram account. Within minutes, the views multiplied. So did the comments. "He is too weak to answer. Poor guy. What a coward. Him again? Does he like being mistreated or what?" And then, the hashtag Wallace the victim appeared. Noah discovered it on his screen, sitting alone in his room. The lights were off. His heart was heavy. He watched the video once. Twice. 3 times. Not to relive the humiliation. But to analyze. To observe. Jared's gestures. Hand position. Posture. Angles of attack. Then he closed his eyes. And he heard Master Kenji's words again, like an echo in his mind. "The time will come. Not for you. But for someone else. And then you will have to choose. What you do for yourself dies with you. What you do for others becomes immortal." Noah stood up. Slowly. He took a deep breath, bowed to the emptiness of his room, as he had learned in the dojo. He felt neither anger nor hatred. Only, a strange clarity. Something was approaching. And this time, he would be ready. Roosevelt High School's annual sports tournament was one of the few events that brought the entire student body together in a spirit of unity, or at least, it seemed so. The stands were packed, cheers echoed through the gymnasium, and the smell of sweat, popcorn, and soda hung in the air. Noah, as always, wasn't on the field. He wasn't wearing a jersey. He wasn't part of a team. But he was there, silent, observing. He applauded the others, staying in a discreet corner of the stands, hands in his pockets, his gaze attentive. That day, against all odds, the juniors had managed to beat the seniors in an indoor soccer match. The winning goal had been scored by Toby Carter, a quiet, plump, asthmatic freshman with a passion for astronomy. The goal, scored almost by chance, had infuriated the members of the senior team, especially Jared, whose anger at being publicly humiliated was palpable. During the break, while the crowd was still buzzing with excitement over Toby's exploit, Noah saw something familiar. A scene he knew all too well. At the back of the gym, near the locker rooms, Jared and 2 of his friends, Travis and Brett, had Toby cornered against a wall, away from official view. Jared had him by the collar, his face red with anger, his breath coming out of his chest. "You think you're a hero now? Huh? You think you have the right to humiliate us, shrimp?" Toby tried to struggle, but his breathing was becoming more and more wheezy. He searched his pockets in a panic, looking for his inhaler. Jared pushed him violently against the wall. And Noah stood up. He felt his heart beat faster. But there was no fear, no hesitation. Only a cold certainty. This moment, this was the one Master Kenji had told him about. He approached slowly, through the students who had gathered in a curious and silent circle around the stage. Some already had their phones in hand, ready to film. Noah cut through the crowd. He didn't shout. He didn't run. He just stood there, 2 meters away from Jared, straight as an arrow. And he said, calmly, "Let him go." The murmur rippled through the crowd. Noah was speaking. And his voice wasn't weak or shaky. It was calm. Menacing in its serenity. Jared turned around, surprised. He froze for a moment. Then his usual grin resurfaced. "Have you finally decided to speak, Bambi? You want to take his place, is that it?" Noah didn't move. He slowly raised his hands, palms open. "I don't want to fight. I just want you to go away." Jared burst out laughing. "That's so good. Do you think you're a superhero now?" He let go of Toby, who fell to the ground, desperately searching for his inhaler. Then Jared took a step toward Noah, and raised his fist. What happened next was so fast, so fluid, so precise, that even phone cameras had to replay the scene in slow motion to understand it. Noah shifted his left foot, letting Jared's punch go through, his fist meeting air. Then, with a twist, he grabbed his arm, spun it around with a flawless joint lock, and threw Jared to the ground with almost shocking ease. No screaming. No injuries. Just a clean, tidy, humiliating fall. There was silence. The crowd, initially shocked, remained transfixed. Travis and Brett stepped back, their eyes wide. Toby, on the ground, panting, was picked up by Olivia, who handed him his inhaler. Noah crouched down, and held out his hand to Jared, who was looking at him with hatred mixed with incomprehension and fear. "Strength," Noah said in a soft but firm voice, "isn't about hitting hard. It's about knowing when not to hit." Then he straightened up, bowed slightly, like in the dojo, and walked away, leaving Jared stunned on the ground. The video went viral on social media within hours. First shared in the students' private groups, it was then relayed by local accounts, then by national pages specializing in inspirational stories. We could see Noah's calm, the precision of his movements, his absolute control. The montage did not show a fight. He was showing a lesson. #hashtag Noah the Quiet Fist Explosa. Teenagers from all over the world commented. "This guy is a modern Shaolin monk. He taught me more in 1 minute than a year of therapy. He is what you call a real man." But not everyone believed the scene was authentic. Some saw it as a setup, a staged plot designed to exact revenge. Others accused the school of hiding a living weapon. At the high school, the reaction was immediate and mixed. Some students, once speechless in the face of Jared's actions, came to thank Noah, sometimes silently, sometimes in tears. Haley slipped him a small card with these words. "Thanks to you, I'm no longer afraid to walk down the halls." Toby, for his part, never left his side. He followed him everywhere, not out of blissful admiration, but out of sincere gratitude. A brotherly bond had grown between them, without ever needing to be named. The principal, Mr. Raymond Carver, a rigid and often distant man, summoned Noah to his office. He stared at her for a long time, his fingers crossed on his dark wooden desk. "I've seen the video, several times. Some want me to take disciplinary action. Others want to award you a medal." Noah looked down. "I want neither, sir." "You received special training, didn't you?" Noah hesitated, then simply nodded. "Yes. But it's not a weapon. It's a path." Carver frowned, then, oddly, cracked a smile. "You're different, Wallace. Maybe you're just what this school needed." A few weeks later, the school announced the opening of a martial arts club, with the support of the district. Not a fight club. A space for discipline, respect, and personal development. Noah refused to be the captain. He didn't like being in the center. He didn't need to. He let another, more experienced student take the official role. But very quickly, it was him that the more timid ones came to see, silently, for advice, a posture, a breathing technique, a way to stand in the face of fear. In the dojo, he became an invisible guide, a quiet rock. Even the former tormentors began to come. Not all of them. But some. Travis stood in the doorway one day, silent, and Noah, without a word, beckoned him in. One evening, in the old wooden dojo of Master Kenji Nakamura, the sun was setting on the horizon, casting golden bands through the cracks in the wall. Noah silently put away the equipment. He replaced a worn sandbag, adjusted a rope, and swept away the dust. Kenji, sitting cross-legged in a corner, watched him with his calm, old tiger eyes. Then, in a slow, deep voice, he said, "You could have humiliated him. You didn't." Noah paused for a moment, his hands resting on the bag, then calmly replied, "You taught me that true power doesn't shout. It doesn't need to be seen. It acts, and then it fades away." A respectful silence fell. Kenji nodded slowly, his eyelids half closed. "You got it, Noah. You got it, something that even old masters sometimes take a lifetime to learn." Noah bowed to him as a sign of respect. Then, without a word, he resumed his position in front of the dojo mirror. He positioned himself, closed his eyes, and began a slow, fluid, precise sequence. Every movement was a prayer. Every breath, an offering. In the fading sunlight, his gestures were those of an invisible warrior, a silent guardian. He was no longer trying to prove anything. He was